The opinions expressed in this show are the views of the host and not necessarily that of WTRW, 94.3 The Talker, or the Bold Gold Media Group.
The following presentation is paid for by Century 21 Jack Ruddy Real Estate, who is solely responsible for its content. Portions transcribed.
All Century 21 real estate offices are independently owned and operated.
Hi, I'm Jackie Ruddy, broker Century 21 Jack Ruddy Real Estate. Welcome to the Real Estate Roundtable on 94.3 FM The Talker. I am here with my husband, co-host, fellow realtor, drone operator, sign man, Pat Devaney.
Good morning, Jackie.
How are you?
Oh, you beat me to it.
Yes.
I'm doing well. How are you?
Very good, thank you. We have with us Will Burnell, owner of Farmers Insurance, the William Burnell Agency. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, both of you.
Morning.
Thank you for being here with us. We look forward to discussing flood insurance. We're here every Saturday at 11 a.m., Sunday at 11:30 a.m., where we talk real estate. We have a full-time real estate office with many exceptional realtors who've been listing, selling, and appraising real estate for over 50 years.
During the week, feel free to email us with any questions you have at questions@jruddy.com. That's questions@jruddy.com, or you can give us a call at 570-344-6724. And when you go to jruddy.com, click on the webcam tab and get a live view of Dunmore Corners and see what's going on there. At least this time of the year, there's no snow. So we're good for a while. I think we're okay in August.
Well, hopefully. It would be sad.
Yeah, that would be bad.
Okay. View our listings, search the MLS listings, and listen to archive radio shows by going to mobile-friendly jruddy.com. That's jruddy.com, where we also feature all the popular podcast apps that this radio show is aired on. We're also all over social media, so check us out on whatever platform you are on out there: Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, Pinterest.
You're everywhere.
We try to be, right? You have to be these days. Okay, Will Burnell, owner of Farmers Insurance, the William Burnell Agency in downtown Scranton. Tell me a little bit about you, how long you've been providing insurance to the community, what type of insurance, and how someone can get in touch with you, please.
Sure. So I'm located on 329 North Washington Avenue in downtown Scranton. We're in that first block between City Hall and Courthouse Square.
Right by Abe's.
Right by Abe's.
I was eating lunch the other day looking at your place.
Yes. You should have stopped in. Introduce yourself prior.
I'm getting my haircut at Mackerel's at the end of the week.
Yeah, they're in my building. Yep. So I've been doing this for over 20 years now. 2004 is when I first got my license. I worked for an independent agency for 11 years in Scranton before I decided to venture out on my own. I've had my agency now. I'm into my 10th year doing this with Farmers. I concentrate in all things insurance. So whether it is home, auto, life, flood. We also do a lot of commercial insurance. My background is in commercial insurance. So I've got a lot of different markets where I can do a lot of different things with commercial as well, in addition to flood insurance for commercial buildings. And I have access to other markets other than the National Flood Program.
Good. All right. Well, you're here today to talk about flood insurance. This is a topic that is very confusing to the general public and is very complicated for realtors. So we want to get through all of that and separate the facts from the myths and so on and so forth. But, I mean, we often hear usually in the late September about how, the National Flood Insurance Program is set to expire, and then this panic ensues, and then nothing. So,
right.
We get these notices. But say, for instance, a buyer just bought a house and they moved into their beautiful new place, right? They're in a brand new neighborhood. They're on top of a hill, but they have a creek nearby.
A what?
A creek.
A what?
A creek.
I think we call that a creek in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, creek.
No, it's called a creek in Pennsylvania, guys.
So if I'm Greek, I'm suddenly Grick?
Yeah. Sure.
Sorry.
Do stairs and a chair creak, or do they crick?
That's CREAK.
No. So the battle with the creek, you could tell, Will, that we have this thing going on with
the water. And the water.
That's right. My wife is from Montana, and they say crick as well.
Okay.
So I'm used to it.
Okay, all right. I'm sorry. So there's a creek.
DC, what do you say?
Crick.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So it's 2 against 2.
We're in the minority.
Okay.
All right. So anyway, they have a homeowner's insurance policy, right?
Correct.
Just a regular one. So they're fully protected, right?
Depends.
That's always the answer. It depends.
Are you sure you don't have a legal background? That
No.
sounds like an attorney response to me.
We're always supposed to say we don't practice law when you're in insurance.
Right, and we say that too.
So homeowners policies cover a lot. We have what we call perils insured against. A peril is fire, theft, vandalism, water damage, but depending upon where it comes from. Wind, lightning, hail. Those are all perils, or what we call peril insured, or insured perils, excuse me. Flood is never included as a peril insured against in a homeowner's policy. Complete exclusion for flood. The only way to gather that extra coverage is to go and buy a single peril policy, which would be a flood policy.
All right. So if a pipe breaks in a house and a building fills up, that's not a flood.
That's not a flood.
Or the water heater goes.
Or the water heater
That's not
goes.
a flood.
So,
or the washer goes.
Correct. So everybody, you hear it all the time. Everybody says, my house flooded. Pipe burst upstairs in my bathroom and it flooded my whole kitchen. That's not a flood. Flood has a very specific definition. And I actually brought it. So if I could read the definition, it's the only time I'll get kind of technical.
No, that's good.
But I think it's good to know that flood in a flood policy has a very, very, very specific definition. So this is my one time to pull the book out. So the definition of flood is a general and temporary condition of partial or complete inundation of two things here. 2 or more acres of what would normally be dry land, or 2 or more properties, one of which is my property, from the following. You got 3 things that will trigger this, and that's all. You have overflow of water, of inland water or tidal water, so this would apply along the coast as well. The unusual rapid accumulation of runoff or surface waters of any source, and that's going to be important because we can come back to that for a minute, and then mud flow. So again, just to kind of cap that, you have normally dry land that gets temporarily inundated, and you have to have 2 things, either 2 or more acres, contiguous acres, or 2 or more properties. And then all of a sudden, boom, you have a flood. Now, you talked about the creek/crick. So you can buy a flood policy anywhere. You know, like any building potentially has a flood flood potential. You can only buy a flood policy if you're in a participating community. So Scranton is a participating community. Even Clark Summit is, Tunkhannock, Mashopin, Wilkes-Barre, Kingston, 44. All those are participating communities in that NFIP, the National Flood Insurance Program. So if you're in that NFIP participating community, I can buy a flood policy no matter what. I might not be able to buy a flood policy if I'm on top of that hill outside of a participating community, maybe way out in the boonies. I might not be able to have anything. So that's why I kind of said before, it depends whether or not you could have coverage. So to go back to what we were saying, that participate community, I buy that house, I have that creek in the backyard, but I'm not in a quote unquote mandatory zone where my mortgage, my federally backed mortgage, is saying, oh, you're in an A zone, you have to buy flood insurance for us to give you your mortgage. I might be in an X zone, which is outside of that mandatory zone area. I decide I don't buy it. I quote unquote don't need insurance. I don't need flood insurance. The mortgage didn't tell me I need it. Well, that's a falsity, right? Just because you're not in an A zone doesn't mean that you don't have that. You
shouldn't have it.
Right. You don't have that flood potential. Thank you. So if you buy the policy in that creek overflows and it only affects your property, I don't have a flood because I didn't meet the definition of what a flood is.
Oh, man.
Now,
oh, boy. I can
The
see.
more you talk, the more confusing it gets because I mean,
Right.
you're making sense to me, but like, this is like, I'm sitting here thinking to myself, nothing is simple.
Never.
There's a lot of gray area.
Mm-hmm.
You know, nothing's black and white. And like, this is why it's so confusing to so
Right.
many people.
right. So now if that creek overflows and it affects your property in the adjoining property,
Then
now all of a sudden I've met the definition of flood. So that's the overflow part. But if you guys remember a couple of years ago, I think it was in Dixon City. I forget what road it was along, but the culvert that went down that one road got blocked during heavy storms, and it popped all the manhole covers, and there was feet of water flowing down. By definition, that was still a flood because you go back to that wasn't the overflow of a creek. That was rapid accumulation or runoff of surface waters from any source. So you could be up behind a water tower, and that water tower bursts, and you've got thousands of gallons of water that come pouring down the road and inundate an entire neighborhood. That would meet the definition of flood. So it's a very specific policy, and like I said, it's a single peril policy. We cover one thing and one thing only.
And it's not cheap.
No, especially in the A zones, it's certainly not cheap.
yeah, and it knocks a lot of first-time home buyers. Like, they may be able to afford the house and homeowners insurance, but when then you add in flood insurance on top of that, they can't do it.
Knocks them right out. I had people in
Yes.
Dixon City down in that off of Boulevard Avenue that way, and they were looking at a house, and it was just, we looked at the map, and it was like one house inside the flood zone, and all of a sudden it's going to be mandatory flood insurance. They loved the house, but they couldn't do it.
I've seen flood maps before, or areas that have been remapped, because I'm sure you guys deal with that all the time now, where the old firm maps of flood insurance rate maps dated back from the 70s and 80s, and then nothing happened for 30, 40 plus
Right.
years. Now they're coming through and they're remapping, and all of a sudden, maybe your house, you lived in Dixon City for 30 years and you were quote unquote not in a flood zone or a mandatory flood zone, and now all of a sudden you get remapped, and I've got 5 feet of the corner of my house sitting in an A zone, and the bank comes to you and says, "Oh, I'm sorry, Jackie, you need a flood policy now." That happens all the time too. I've had to write policies for people.
Where are
that
these
way.
maps? Are they available from FEMA?
Yes, so you could go on a couple different websites. You can go right to let me just.
Because that'd be a good tool for a lot of people who have the question. They're like,
Yep.
am I in a flood zone?
Right. So you can go to FEMA.gov directly and then search the NFIP, search the National Flood Insurance Program, and start working through there. But you can also go to what's called floodsmart.com. And floodsmart.com is more of a website for consumers. So you can go in there and you can plug in your address, and it'll pull up a map and
Wonderful.
show you where you are.
Good tools.
Yeah, because the FEMA maps, I'll tell you,
They
they're
can be-
hard to
oh.
read. They're very difficult to
Yeah.
read. And we have a link on our MLS that takes us into it. But I'll tell you, everybody, you have to get a second, third opinion when you're looking at
Right.
that. I mean, you have to be somewhat of an engineer to understand what they're doing there.
Well, it's a map from the government, so of course it's easy to
It's
understand.
complicated,
No,
yeah.
no, it's very simple.
So
Just like the tax codes, very simple.
So my suggestion there would be to find either if you guys have agents that you work with, or your independent insurance agents that you already work with for your own business or your homeowners or whatever, call that person and say, hey, can you start a flood quote for Mrs. Jones? Here's the address. And as soon as you plug that information into the flood rating system, it'll immediately populate the address, validate it, and it'll tell you what zone you're in.
You know,
And you have these tools.
Yes,
You do this.
yes,
Okay, I'm
yeah.
sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, so I've done that. Not with your company, with other companies that I have done business with in the past, and they've actually refused to give the consumer that information. They said that they don't do that. Yeah, I know it's probably
Maybe
just
it's-
an individual.
Yeah.
They just didn't want to put in the time.
They might not have had access to it. Who knows?
I have a realtor friend who's up in the Honesdale area,
right?
And I've known her for 20 plus years. I have a lot of her insurance, but she sends people my way, and sometimes just as a favor to her, because I've known her for so long, she'll call me, do that exact same thing, say, well, I'm trying to sell this house. I've already given this potential buyer your name and your information. Can you please run a quick flood quote? Because this whole sale is dependent upon what this is going to cost.
Okay, let's get back to,
yes.
And that's great that you provide that service to someone that, it seems like it's a nice give and take relationship, but a lot of people out there, you would think that they would want to provide a service, but they don't and won't. So you mentioned the federally backed loans that require flood insurance.
Yes.
They have to get the government's policy, correct?
No. So in my 20 plus years of doing this, what we call private flood outside of that NFIP, the National Flood Insurance Program, didn't really even exist. You had to buy an NFIP policy, and that was it. So I opened this agency in 2015, and shortly after I opened my agency, all of a sudden, this private flood started to become available. I think that the federal government actually allowed that to happen. Create competition, right? So all of a sudden we had other options.
Choices, oh my God.
You didn't have to just go to the NFIP. We always start with the NFIP, but then we would go to another company and rate something up. Usually, back not 9 years ago now or 10 years ago or whatever, the private flood could be a third to a half less than the NFIP.
Right.
Wow.
Part of that is because they didn't have any data, right? So all of a sudden I start a brand new program that's like a clean sheet of paper. There's nothing on it. You start writing this stuff and you think, oh, this is great. I'm bringing in all these premium dollars and I'm not paying out any claims. And then all of a sudden you start paying out claims, and like any type of policies are out there, any programs out there, once you start absorbing claims, you get to that point where your rates aren't high enough. You're not bringing in enough premium dollar. So then all of a sudden those private flood policies started realizing what the national flood policies realized, that this stuff's expensive.
Right.
And we have to start getting more dollars. So now I just rated somebody the other day. We were talking about somebody buying a house in a floodplain. We sold her the homeowners policy, and let's say it was $1,700 or $1,800. She didn't have any mortgage, so she did, quote unquote, didn't need flood insurance, but she wanted a quote. The flood quote was almost $2,500. And she freaked out. She's like, that's more than my mortgage or more than my homeowner's policy. And so, well, yeah, because you're in an A zone. You're in Dixon City. You're in an A zone. You're right near the river.
My father had a house in Rockaway in Breezy Point, New York, during Sandy, and the tide was 11 foot above high tide. We had 2 feet of water in the living room. Everything. So the homeowners policy guy came out. I remember I walked around the house with him, and he was like, well, there's a couple of shingles. I was like, well, the basement's filled to the ceiling with water. The first floor is destroyed. All the mechanicals are destroyed. He goes, I can't do anything. He says, I'll give you $2,000-$3,000 for the damage for that. The guy for the flood insurance policy came around. I walked around with him. He went, oh, my God. And it was $100,000, and it was a big number back then that my dad was paying.
Right.
The guy wrote the check for $100,000. He says, we're just going to give you the full vase.
And it didn't cover.
No, and it didn't. And that was 12 years ago, and it didn't cover everything.
Right.
So there were other programs that my dad was eligible for, thank God.
Right. There are a lot of disaster loans that you can get, small business loans and things like that. The federal government will come in. But most of those are grants, or they have to be paid back. They're disaster loans. It's not insurance.
No, they were grants. They were rapid recovery and all kinds of.
Right.
I don't remember the names of the program, but he had qualified for a lot of that.
Right.
And thank God he got back in.
Okay, Will Burnell, owner of Farmers Insurance, the William Burnell Agency. How does someone get in touch with you, please?
So my direct dial, office dial is 570-866-3100. So it's a kind of an easy one to remember, 570-866-3100. We all have landing pages with farmers. So if you go to farmers.com, search find an agent, you can type in a zip code and it'll give you the list of agents in your area, the closest to you. You can search by name. So you can say find an agent and type in Will or Burnell or William or Scranton, and you can find me that way.
Okay, great.
We also have a Facebook page.
Okay, and you provide homeowners, auto, life, flood. Okay,
and
residential
business,
and commercial.
Yep, commercial and business insurance
Okay,
as well.
great. Good to know. All right, I would like to welcome Sherry Hoban to our list of fine professionals at Century 21 Jack Ruddy Real Estate. Sherry Hoban is a dedicated and experienced realtor with a sincere desire to help her clients achieve their real estate dreams. She started her career in 2019. She's built a reputation for excellence, integrity, and unparalleled client service. She's committed to hard work and continuous learning, and she ensures that she stays ahead of market trends and provides her clients with the most accurate and up-to-date information. So why choose Sherry? Because of her reputation for excellence, her knowledge and experience, her hard work and dedication, and her client-centered approach. Whether you're looking to buy or sell your home, please give Sherry Hoban a call. She can be reached at 570-561-6741. Pat, would you like to review a listing, please?
Yes, we have a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home at 170 Wyoming Street in Wilkes-Barre for $240,000. This is a lovely home. It's got new flooring throughout. It's got new vinyl siding. It's got an updated bathroom. It's got a fenced-in yard. It's got a gazebo in the back. It's got plenty of off-street parking on the side of the house that's paved for 4 cars. This home is in move-in condition. It also has a finished walk-up attic and low taxes of only $2,200 a year. That's a beautiful 3-bedroom, 2-bath home at 170 Wyoming Street in Wilkes-Barre for $240,000, and that's listed by James Caceres of our office.
Stay with the Real Estate Roundtable with Century 21 Jack Ruddy Real Estate. We'll be right back on 94.3 FM The Talker. Are you ready to make your next move in the world of real estate? Look no further than Century 21 Jack Ruddy Real Estate, your trusted partner in buying and selling homes. If you're a homeowner looking to sell, Century 21 Jack Ruddy Real Estate will ensure you get the best possible price in today's competitive market. And if you're in the market to buy your dream home, Century 21 Jack Ruddy Real Estate will help you find the perfect place to call your own.
Congratulations.
We've adopted the popular saying, an educated consumer is our best customer. That's why since 2010, we've hosted the Real Estate Roundtable with Century 21 Jack Ruddy Real Estate Saturdays at 11 a.m., Sundays at 11:30 a.m. on 94.3 The Talker. Visit jruddy.com. That's JRUDDY.com or call 570-344-6724. Century 21 Jack Ruddy Real Estate, where dreams find their address. Thanks for joining the Real Estate Roundtable with Century 21 Jack Ruddy Real Estate on 94.3 FM The Talker. We are here with Will Burnell, owner of Farmers Insurance, the William Burnell Agency. Thank you so much for coming in with us today.
Thank you again.
Talking about flood insurance. So FEMA, which administers the National Flood Insurance Policy, says more than 40% of flood damage claims come from outside high-risk areas on FEMA maps. 1 inch of water can do about, and you might have a different number here, so please let me know, but this is the information I have. 1 inch of water can do about $25,000 in damage. So requiring flood insurance for all policy holders could spell more security for owners nationwide. Flood is the main issue not covered by homeowners insurance and the largest exposure for financial uninsured risk.
Yeah.
That's what we were talking about on the break. You know, you don't have to necessarily be by a body of water. I'm not going to get into creek with you right now, Pat. Not happening. But you don't have to be by a lake or an ocean or anything like that to have a flood.
Correct. So, and you're right. It's funny. I actually have that exact same statistic in front of me that 40% of all flood claims come from outside of those mandatory zones. That A zone, if you're inland, and the V zones, which are tidal. So, when people say to you, "Well, I don't need flood insurance. I'm not in a flood zone, or my mortgage isn't making me buy it," does not mean that you don't have that flood exposure. When you're thinking 40% of all those claims come from outside of those mandatory zones.
Well, how about, I'm thinking about some of the disasters locally that have occurred in Dunmore at a low point, and no body of water is by
Monroe
there.
Avenue over there.
1200 block of Monroe Avenue.
Right.
4 or 5 houses flooded.
Yep.
From a water main break.
Main break.
Right.
And Clark Summit last year.
Oh,
where
that
people
was
lost their
terrible.
lives and cars were swept away.
Yeah. And that was, so I've lived around here most of my life and kind of moved away and then kind of found my way back here again. And I've never seen, quote unquote, the notch, right? Flood like that ever. And you look at all those businesses down there. Now, Leggett's Creek is really close. And I'm sure all those people are in flood zones. But I even have a customer down there that rents an office space, and I offered her a flood policy for contents only, because you don't always have to buy coverage for just a building. You can buy contents coverage as well, separately. And after the flood, she still said that she didn't want it. And I was, oh, okay. Well, you just had, even though you didn't own the building, you just had 8 inches of water. Thank God that was all she had. She had 8 inches of water in her office. And they just the landlord came in, swept it out, and got the mud out. And she said, no, I'm fine. Nothing got damaged. So that's...
Next time, she might not be so lucky, though.
Well, right. And that's where it's difficult for us as insurance agents, because we try to talk to people about that. And just like I mentioned before, that young woman that bought the house with no mortgage, she's in an A zone. The policy is expensive, but because it's not mandatory for her to buy it, she is not going to buy it. But yet she's got that exposure. So that's tough on people like me, because we try to take care of our customers and advise them professionally, but money always comes into it. And flood insurance, as you said, Pat, is expensive.
Right. And you can't save people from themselves. I mean, you can give them all the information, and you're looking at it from the outside saying, do this, do that. And people very narrow sight. They can't see. They have blinders on.
Well, I'm risk averse, but there's a lot of risk takers out there. Yes. And sometimes I wish I was more of a risk taker, but I'm not. And I think about the property across the street from your dad's in Breezy Point. You know, your dad owned the house outright, didn't have to. Well, it didn't have to have a flood insurance policy, but did. And thankfully he did, because it helped pay for the reconstruction.
Yeah, and the guy across the street didn't.
Right.
His house was destroyed.
Okay, Will Burnell, owner of Farmers Insurance, the William Burnell Agency. How does someone get in touch with you?
So my phone number is 570-866-3100, or stop in and see us.
And you are located?
329 North Washington Avenue, downtown Scranton, directly across from your favorite deli, Abe's.
Yeah, my favorite. Yep.
Yes, it's a good spot. Thank you, Will. Would you come back next week so we can talk to you more about flood insurance?
Love to.
All right. Thanks. Pat?
We have a lovely 3-bedroom ranch-style home at 959 Paul Avenue in Scranton for $229,000. This charming home, it's the perfect blend of cozy and convenience. It has hardwood flooring. It has an absolutely beautiful modern kitchen with granite countertops and a tile backsplash. The home sits on a 50 by 150 lot. It's got a fenced-in yard. It's got a concrete driveway leading up to that one-car garage. The basement is wide open, and it would be perfect for a workshop or storage. That's a 3-bedroom home at 959 Paul Avenue in Scranton for $229,000, and that's listed by Sherry Hoban of our office.
Sherry Hoban. She is a new addition to our office, and I just, before the break, I welcomed her, and we're looking forward to all that she has in store for her clients and the real estate world. Also, don't forget, we are a quality service award-winning office with the Century 21 system. We'll be here next Saturday at 11 a.m., Sunday at 11:30 a.m. for more Real Estate Roundtable on 94.3 FM The Talker.